On today's episode on How to Ship, we'll be looking over the Russian-biased queen of World of Warships, the Stalingrad. Let's get started. The Stalingrad is the first steel ship choice for most World of Warships players. It's either the Stalingrad or the Burgoyne, but in this case, it's the Stalingrad. Its guns are unmatched for its raw power, penetration, and accuracy. It has a lot of HP to work with for a cruiser, which makes it surprisingly tanky, plus its 27mm bow and tanky hull. It, combined with the legendary Commander Kuznetsov, makes it one of the top tier 10 cruisers in the game, as well as a strong competitive ship for ranked and clan battles. How you want to build the Stalingrad is into concealment, tank, and gun skills, which are going to be the heavy AP, superintendent, top grade gunner, and concealment. This will strengthen the Stalingrad's AP, which is already very potent. In the modules, you want to go more for a build for the gun accuracy in the 3rd slot, reload in the 6th slot, with concealment in the 5th, and radar in the 2nd. Now in the 4th slot, you can either do propulsion or rudder shift, depending on what you prefer. I personally go with propulsion since the Russian cruisers already get strong acceleration. This just makes that even stronger. How you want to play the Stalingrad is to start off going to either the 1 or the 10 line flank, depending upon where you spawn at. Now the Stalingrad that doesn't have the best concealment is really dangerous for you to stay in the middle of the map. So that's why I was saying you need to go to the 1 line or the 10 line. It doesn't have the best concealment, so it's really important for you to go to the 1 line flank or the 10 line flank, depending upon wherever you spawn. Normally, the distance you want to start off of is around a 14 to 15 kilometers away from the enemy to be able to farm using AP and HE. Now, for the Stalingrad, you'll be using mostly AP on angled or broadside targets. Now, a tip for the AP, the shells are pretty fast on the Stalingrad, so you need to aim a little bit above the waterline, around 12 kilometers and closer, but about 15 kilometers away, you'll want to start aiming higher near the midsection of most ships due to the plunging fire effect of the shells. So if you're trying to get more citadel shots 12 kilometers and closer, aim just a little bit above the waterline or at the waterline. And if you want to try to aim more for citadel shots like around the midsection, around 15 kilometers on cruisers, I would definitely say aim around the midsection so they'll plunge into the citadel. But for battleships around that distance, you want to aim higher to hit that upper deck and superstructure area to get those pins there. But if it's just a flat broadside battleship, you can actually citadel them at that distance, like at the Conqueror. Now you're able to, but for something tanky like a Kremlin, you just want to go at the upper deck or the superstructure area on the battleship, because if you aim for the citadel of a Kremlin at 15 kilometers away at Stalingrad, you're not going to citadel it because of how thick the citadel is. So you need to aim a little bit higher to get that upper deck armor to be able to pen it, and the superstructure gets those pen damages. Now, if you're dealing with bow in or aft away battleships and cruisers, I would definitely say use HE to get that fire damage going. Now, more so on battleships if they're aft away of you. If you're dealing with more cruisers that are aft away from you, can actually use AP to still do a lot of damage to them if they're within 12 kilometers. But once they're starting to get a little bit further away, you probably want to switch to HE, just try to get that fire damage. But you can just use HE or AP, just switch in between them, see what your damages do. But most of the time, you're going to be using AP on the Stalingrad just because of just how strong the AP is on this ship. So for whenever you're trying to be pushing, normally you will not want to push in until you have a battleship pushing in with you, so you're not just pushing it alone, because the Stalingrad has a very long burn time, a second burn time for the Stalingrad, which means if you try pushing up a flank alone, you are going to die. You are not going to have a fun time. You are going to burn out really quick, and you're going to be out of the match really quick. So a good tip for the Stalingrad: always keep your distance, never push in alone, always have a push-in buddy with you. So a battleship, another cruiser, just something else that can also take the fire with you, because the Stalingrad does have a reputation in the game for having extremely strong guns in people will focus you down to try to get you out of the match, because Stalingrad guns can pack a punch on anything. Now, if you are on a flank where you're on a stronger side, wait to push in with the battleship. Wait while being Bowen, wait to push in with him. Keep your distance around 15 kilometers to 14 kilometers. Be with your battleship in a way. Now, if you're on a flank that's lighter, where the enemy team is going to be heavier, have yourself in a kiting position early. Make sure that you are reversed into the enemy early so that you're able to get out of there as quickly as possible, W away as fast as possible, take as little damage as possible. Make sure you are using your gun angles to your advantage. I've seen so many people not using those gun angles to their advantage when they're bowing and when they're cutting away, and they just eat so many pen damage and citadel damage by just showing too much broadside. Please don't do that. Make sure you use your gun angles on this ship. The ship has amazing gun angles, so make sure you take proper usage of that. During engagements, also make sure to use the Russian acceleration to juke shots. The Russian cruisers have amazing acceleration. Make sure you use it on the Stalingrad to be able to W away quicker or slow down quicker, to be able to juke shots, do maneuvers. Even though the Stalingrad is big, you are able to juke pretty well with this thing. So definitely put that to use, dodging those shells and torpedoes. Make the enemy wish they never had to deal with you to begin with, and have a good time doing that. Some tips of dealing with destroyers: since you do have such a massive concealment, wait to use your radar until you are pretty much sure that that destroyer is going to be inside your radar, and make sure you have HE loaded for the destroyer. HE will pack a massive punch onto destroyers. You can do up to about 8,000 damage or 9,000 damage depending on how many shells you hit, but you can really wreck a destroyer's day by timing your radar properly. Now, if you time the radar properly and have your guns ready, you should be able to get 2 salvos in before the radar runs out. So make sure you time it properly, coordinate with your team on where the destroyer is most likely is, and just lay a trap, push into it, get that radar off, and have a time of your life. Now again, the Stalingrad does not have hydro, so you need to be extremely careful of how much you push into the destroyer. You're just trying to get that radar off, be able to let your other teammates and the destroyers spot the torpedoes for you. So don't be overly aggressive in a destroyer, because it will be able to stay outside of your radar range and still spot you at the same time. So definitely be careful of that. So we've kind of covered how to deal with destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. We've done like a light tutorial there on how to deal with those. But what about the cancer classes of World of Warships? What about submarines and carriers if they are in your match? Well, I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to deal with them. So let's get started on that. So one of the main tips I can give you is, if you're in a match with a submarine or a carrier, you need to be always on the move. The Stalingrad being such a massive target, you're going to be prime real estate for carriers and submarines to come after you just to try to farm you and kill you. So you definitely need to be always on the move. That's tip number 1. Always being on the move. Never be staying still, always being on the move. Now, tip number 2 is, particularly for carriers, if you have DFA, which of course you do, make sure to use that when you know that they're coming in for attack. You'll want to proc your DFA first, and then once you prot that, then do your priority sector on the side the CV is going to be attacking you from. Now, the P key on your keyboard is the priority sector, or most people have it put onto their spacebar, but I personally have it for spacebar. You can do whatever you want with that, but make sure you have DFA active first and then proc the priority target so that you're able to get as much damage as possible done onto those planes. Because if you have DFA active, you do extra flak damage. You do extra flak damage and continuous damage having the DFA up, and it does an extra damage with the initial percentage damage when you do the priority sector on the plane side. So that's a tip for the carriers. Now, for submarines, one of the best ways to deal with submarines is pretty much to if you're doing a submarine and it's pinging you and trying to torp you, right? If you're kiting away from the submarine, make sure you kite away at a slow speed, about a quarter. And then once you see the torps coming in, you want to DCP and then full speed away so that you're able to use your acceleration to be able to dodge the torpedoes. Now, you could also do this simply by being full speed, and then once you see the torpedoes, you slow down and you turn away from the torps. That will cause them to miss, but this all depends upon where the ping is at on your ship. So imagine if the ping is at the bow of your ship and you're kiting away. You will want to slow down your ship to be able to dodge that. Now, if the ping is at the rear of your ship, you'll want to DCP in full W away from those torps so you're able to dodge them. Now, if you're caught bow into a submarine, the best way I can say to dodge those torpedoes is if they are on your bow, you're wanting to, again, slow down and turn into the torps to be able to dodge those torpedoes. And if the ping is on the rear of your ship, you're wanting to DCP and go as fast as possible and turn into the torpedoes to be able to dodge those torpedoes. And that's my tips for dodging submarine torpedoes. Now, again, this is only to be able to dodge 1 or 2 sets because, again, you just DCP'd. You're going to be kind of in trouble at that point. Now, you don't have to always DCP torpedoes. It all depends upon the type of sub. If you're dealing with a Thrasher, it's going to be very rough to dodge those torpedoes. But if you're dealing with like something like a Vallejo or a U-45 or a U-25, the torpedoes aren't going to be as good homing, so you have a better chance of being able to dodging those. But if you're dealing with a Thrasher, those have the best homing in the game for tier 10. You're going to have a really hard time dodging those, so good luck with that. Well, that's going to be it for my short guide on the Stalingrad on this episode of How to Ship. Make sure to comment Russian bias in the comments if you enjoyed. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments. And thank you all for watching.